Keilim Yud Aleph Daled.
Okay. Regarding a piece of iron, excuse me, that one mixed with a piece of iron, if a majority of it is from Tomei source, the newly formed utensil is Tomei. If the majority is from a Tahor source, the utensil is Tahor. If it is half and half, it's Tomei, and the same applies to a utensil made from kalama, or cattle dung.
And kettle dung.
Excuse me?
That's an and, not an or.
Uh,
It's a mixture that we're talking about, so it's got to be an and.
A doorbell with a knob is Tomei, but if it's not plated, it is Tahor. And a pin tumbler, a bolt, or Tomei. And regarding a doorbell with a knob, Rabbi Yeshua says that one may drag it from the door and hang it on another one on the Shabbos. Rabbi Tarfon says it is like all other utensils and may be carried within a courtyard. The bit of a bridle is Tomei, and the cheek pieces are Tahor. If Eliezer rules the cheek pieces Tamai, and the sages say nothing is Tamai except the bit. But when they are joined, everything is Tamai. A wall made of metal, Rabbi Akiva rules is Tamai, but the common rule is Tahor, and a plated or is Tahor. A spindle, a distaff, a rod, a symphonia, a flute. If they are made of metal, they are Tamai, but if they are made of they are plated, they are Tahor. However, if a symphonia has a receptacle for valves resembling wings, it is Tamai in either case. Okay.
All right, Karen. So this horn over here that we're talking about is a musical wind instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if it is this depends on with agula. If it's, in other words, if it's curved, such that it could be used as a receptacle, that is tameh. Shutza tahora, but a straight one is tahor. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about it's literally made from horn, which gives it the status of bone.
Right.
And bone and wood are kind of interchangeable in terms of their tumor levels, which means that it has to be a receptacle in order to be. And if it's something that's straight, it's like a pipe, right? Mm-hmm. So if a pipe is curved, then it's got a receptacle in the bottom. So, and if it's used for holding so we said that a pipe, even if it's curved, is still tower because it's not designed as a receptacle. But this horn that's curved is sometimes used as a receptacle, and that's why
if you take one of the silver trumpets, at the end of the trumpet is curved, but it really can't hold anything. It's more like a funnel.
Silver is metal.
Right. Right.
Okay. Difference. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking here about animal horn, which is bone. Okay. If it's mouthpiece, so if it's got a mouthpiece that's plated in metal, then that is tameh. Okay. So when we say it is tameh, the mouthpiece or the whole, or does the whole thing suddenly become tameh? Let me just clarify that. Even a straight horn becomes susceptible to tumah entirely, it seems to be. The reason is that since the mouthpiece is the main section of the horn, for it is the part primarily responsible for producing the sound, the entire horn is classified as a metal utensil and is thus susceptible to tumah even without a receptacle.
I'm thinking of this bell, and I'm thinking about the bells are on the bottom of the Kohen begadim, because they're made of metal, and if they were turned the other way around, it would be a receptacle. So they would have to be careful about that, wouldn't they?
Sorry, what are we talking about?
I'm talking about the bells that are on the bottom of the Kohen Gadol's vestments.
Yeah, his vestments are susceptible to tumah because they're clothing.
You got me again. Okay, all right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
But could if the clothes would be tahor, and the bell could become tameh.
They're not going to go separately.
Okay. All right.
They're part of the same garment. There's no,
Okay.
and they're never detached. It's not like you'd take them on and off. They're
Right.
part of the garment. So there'll be no separation there. Okay. All right. Hakav shela. Hold on a second. Right, the bell. Now, so the kav is called the bell. Rabbi Tarfon Matame v'Chachamim Matarin. Okay, so what is the bell? So that's the wide end of the horn out of which the sound emerges, and that's called the bell because it's kind of more shaped like that. Okay, so if the wide section of the horn is made of metal, then according to Rabbi Tarfon, that it makes it susceptible to tumah even when it's detached from the instrument. Because he's saying that the bell is a utensil whose name clearly identifies it as a specific utensil, whereas the Chachamim say it's tahor because it's not. When it's detached, it's not susceptible because it's an object whose name, the kav, must be qualified with an additional term. Again, we're talking. It's kind of a word game almost, but like you say, a lot hinges on that word game. So when you've got a non-receptacle klimateches, the question of whether it accepts tumah or not depends on whether it's got an independent name or whether it has to have an adjunct name. Okay. And that's not just sort of magic of words. Having an adjunct name shows that it's not as important as you think it is. When it's got like a cherev, a sword is like, that's a sword. And that's definitely susceptible to tumah, but a kaneh is not so clear. Okay. When everything is joined together, then everything is tameh. That's no question about it. With what we were talking about it being tahor is only when it's detached. But when it's all together in one unit, then everything accepts tumah as one unit. Similarly, here we have we've spoken about this outside before, but here the Mishna actually brings this case. It's a classic case of does it have an adjunct name or is it an independent name? Kanei menorah. That's two words. They're tahor. If they've been disassembled, then they are not susceptible to tumah. Haperach v'basis tmeim. Now what they call the perach and the base. So these are the parts that the candelabra fits into, and these things, even though they don't have an independent name, they have adjunct names because it's like the basis menorah. But the difference is that these have a receptacle. Once they have a receptacle, then it's no less susceptible than if it was a Kli-Eitz. Okay. Ubashas chiburan. And at the time that everything is connected, hakol tameh, then it's all one unit. Okay, so again, just to remind you that this whole discussion about whether it's tahor or tameh or whatever, that's only when it's been disassembled once. But once it's all in one unit, then everything receives tumah as a unit. Okay, kasta, helmet. We still use the word kasta in modern Hebrew for a helmet. You see people wearing a bicycle helmet using a kasta. Okay, this is a battle helmet over here. So it itself, of course, is tameh. That would be obvious, but the lechayim, the cheek guards, as you see in the diagram over there, those are detachable. And just having cheeks, we saw that we also had lechayim on a horse's bridle. So lechayim is an ambiguous term until you say it's lechayim kasta. Okay, and those are tahor if they're detached. However, if they were designed with a receptacle so that the soldier who's in battle can go past a river, take off his cheek guard, scoop up some water and drink from it, that's tameh, because that's a kli in its own right. That's right, it's got a receptacle. Kol klei milchama tameim. All of your general war implements, hakidon. Kidon, I think, what is that? A spear? Yeah, it's a small spear. Hanikon is the spear head, which is the sharpened metal tip that fits into the shaft of the spear to form its piercing end. Okay, hamagafaim. Magafaim are in modern Hebrew are boots, and here in battle they're greaves. So it's it's a sort of a shin guard. Is that over here? I think. Yeah, metal leg guards or some sort of metal shoe protection. Okay, shirion, armor. All of these shirion is a coat of mail, right? So all of these are tameh. Kol tachshitei nashim tmeim, and women's jewelry. Lav dafka women's jewelry, by the way. If men are really wearing the jewelry, it's also tamei, but it's just that women tend to wear jewelry more than men do. Okay, for example, an ir shel zahav, we see that popping up in Shabbos, and Rabbi Akiva talks about giving an ir shel zahav to his wife. Okay, it's a kind of a pendant. Katlios are chokers, necklaces, right? Nizamim are earrings and tabas, finger rings, and tabas bein sheyesh la chosam or bein she'ein la chosam. Okay, and with a ring is tamei whether it's got a signet or doesn't have a signet. It's just it's a garment, and it has an independent name, even though it's not a kli. And I think I wonder if it's because it's got an independent name or because it's a garment that it's tamei. But either way, it's tamei. Okay, and nizmei ha'af, and nose rings as well. What's so interesting, by the way, just a tangent, is that nowadays nose rings are so pasnished. It's like you look at a woman who's got a nose ring in the Haredi Welt, it's like off the derech, completely off the derech. but you look in Chumash, you go, what did Eliezer bring for Rivka?
Nose ring, right?
Nose rings.
I asked my daughter about it. My granddaughter, and the oldest granddaughter. They said, "Oh, it's a big thing." So the Haredi women wear them all the time. It's a whole big thing with the nose rings and everything. You know, they have the little thing in the nose. I can't stand those things. They just
No. Also, they turn me off completely. But you got to be honest about the fact that they're in Chumash. Our imahos wore nose rings.
No ring isn't so bad. It's when they have the lip rings and the cheek.
Don't start.
It's so
that's for sure not in the Chumash.
I don't understand how they do that. I don't get it. Anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely a statement. Okay. Katla shechulios shel matachos. Bechut shel pishtan. Okay, so you've got a choker that's got a bunch of rings on it. Okay, they've got a bunch of metal rings that are strung on a linen cord, or shel tzemer, or a woolen cord. Okay, nifsak hachut. What happens if the cord breaks and now the chulios all fall over the floor? They remain tamei, however. Shekol achas kli b'fnei atzma, because each one is usable by itself, and you could take so it's not just that one that they're, as a necklace they're usable. Each one, if you lost all of the rest and you just had one, you could still put a string through it and hang it as a pendant. So they still retain their tumah each individually. Now, what happens if you have it the other way around? Let's say you had a metal chain, and you strung on it beads of precious stones. Precious stones, by the way, are stones, completely impervious to tumah, no matter what shape they take. Okay, stoneware is never tamei in its own right. Okay, or magalios, or pearls, or which are from the sea, also become a tower. Okay, shel zechuchis, glassware has to be a receptacle. But okay, nishtabru chulios. If the beads broke, v'achut b'fnei atzmo kayam, and all that you've got left is the chain, that is tamei, because the chain itself could be worn just by itself. Okay. Shiarei katla. Now, what happens if you got the remnants of a necklace, of this choker that kimlot savar ketana? So you had a nice long necklace and it broke, and now it's much smaller than it used to be. At what point is it no longer considered a necklace? Is it too short to be worn? And kimlot savar ketana, it's got to be the circumference of a young girl's neck. Okay, if you can't get it onto a little girl, then it's too short to be a kli, and it's tower. Even if it's just got one ring left, it's still tamei. Sheken tolin batzavar. If it's just got one, you could take that one ring and put it onto another necklace and hang that around the neck. So that's Rabbi Eliezer. It says as long as there's still one stone on it, it's still a usable piece of jewelry. The Chachamim disagree with that. Okay.
Right.
Next one, Tess. So here is a very nice, fashionable piece of jewelry. If you let's take a look at the diagram before we get into the Mishnah. So you see the hook where it goes into the hole, okay, into the earring hole, and then below it is what's called the adasha, a little lentil, and because it's shaped, round like a lentil, and then there's a kadera, a pot hanging from below it, and the kadera is hollow and it's got a receptacle in it, which is going to come into play in a minute. Okay, let's see in the Mishnah. It's an earring that is shaped like this with a pot at the lower end and a lentil at the top, and nifrak, and it fell apart into its component pieces. Right, the joins broke. Kadera tame, the kadera at the bottom, the little pot is tame mifshum kli base kibble, because it's a receptacle. Okay, and these earrings were designed to hold an emergency supply of perfume. So you run out of perfume and you quickly need some perfume. You pull off the kadera, open it up, and put it back. Okay, so that's got a kli base kibble. Kadasha, the lentil, is tameh bifnei atzmo. That is by itself a useful piece of jewelry, because if you just cover up if you cover up the kadera with your finger and just take a look at the top piece and say, oh, that's still a pretty earring, even though it doesn't have the dangly bit. Okay. And tameh bifnei atzmo tzinora tahora. But the hook, if all that's left is the hook, that's useless. Nobody's going to just put a hook in their ear unless they're a pirate. I don't know. What if the earring was made like a cluster of grapes? Benifrak, and the cluster fell apart and all these little balls fell off. That is tahor. There's nothing you can do with it. It's nobody's going to take these little pieces and do something with them. They're only useful once if they're in that cluster. Otherwise, it looks silly. Okay, and that is the end of today's Mishnahs.
Okay. Kazara, Yud, Yud.
Yeah.
Regarding one whom Tamei makes touch, who has foods and beverages in his mouth, if he inserted his head into a towel oven, they render it Tamei. And a towel, a person who had foods or beverages in his mouth and inserted his head into the airspace of a Tamei earthenware oven, they are rendered Tamei. If one was eating a pressed fig with soiled hands and he inserted his hand into the mouth and removed a pebble, Reb Meir rules a Tamei, but Reb Yehuda rules a Tahor. Reb Yossi says if he turned it over, it is Tamei, but if he did not turn it over, it is Tahor. And if there was a funyun in his mouth, Reb Yossi says it was to relieve his thirst, it is Tamei. Regarding women, regarding a woman from whose breast milk dripped and the milk fell into the airspace of an oven, it is Tamei. For a beverage can transmit tumor whether one was pleased or not pleased. If she was shoveling ashes out of the oven and a thorn hit her and if she bled, or she was burned and put her finger into her mouth, the oven becomes Tamei. Regarding a needle or a ring that was found on the floor of an oven, visible but not protruding into the oven, if one bakes dough and it touches the ring or needle, the oven is Tamei. With regard to which kind of dough did they stake this into intermediate dough? If they were found in a coating of an oven surrounded by a sealed cover, if they are in a Tamei oven, they are Tamei, and if they are in a Tahor oven, they are Tahor. Or if they were found in the stopper of a barrel on its side, they are Tamei. Opposite its mouth, they are Tahor. If they are visible from within it, but do not protrude into its airspace, they are Tahor. And if they were sunken into it and under them was a garlic peel, they are Tahor.
Okay, that's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. Midos.
Okay. Gimel Zad. Both the stones of the altar and the stones of the ramp were quarried from the valley of Beit Kerem, and they would dig beneath virgin soil and bring from there the whole stones which had not been touched by iron, for iron rendered unflit simply by touching or by being nicked by anything. If some of the stones were nicked, it was unfit, and if the rest of them are still fit. And if they would reface the stone twice, they would reface the stone twice a year, once on Pesach, once on Sukkot, and the Hekel would be finished once a year on Pesach. Rebbe says every Friday they would clean the altar with a wet cord on account of the blood. They would not apply the coat of lime to the stones with an iron trowel, but let it touch the stones and render them unfit. For iron was created to shorten the life of man, while the altar was created to lengthen the life of man. It is not right for the shortener should be lifted up upon the lengthener. And there were rings to the north of the altar, 6 rings of four rings each, and some say 4 rings of 6 rings each. For by these rings they would slaughter the offerings of Kedoshim. The butchering area was at the north of the altar, and upon it were the 8 dwarf pillars, and square blocks of cedar were set upon these pillars. And hooks of iron were fixed to the cedar blocks, and each block had 3 rows of hooks upon which they would hang the animals and skin upon them, animal skins, then upon marble tables which stood between the dwarf pillars. Okay.
One more.
That's it. One more. The laver was located between the antechamber and the altar, and was drawn toward the south. Between the antechamber and the altar were 22 amot, and there were 12 steps for the height of each step. It was half an amma, and its tread was 1 amma. 1 amma, 1 amma, and a landing of 3 amos. 1 amma, 1 amma, and a landing of 3 amos. And the uppermost 1 amma, and a landing of 4 amos. For the Huber says the steps of the uppermost were set 1 amma, etc., and a landing of 5 amos.
Yeah. The chorus Dalet base.
If it developed a blemish during its first year, it is permissible to keep for the entire 12 months. After its first year, they may keep it only until 30 days. If one slaughters the before and then shows its blemish, but Yehuda permits it. But Yehuda, however, says since it was slaughtered without sanction of an expert, it is forbidden. If one who was not an expert inspected a Bechor and was slaughtered by his sanction, it must be buried and must make restitution from his property. And one derived a verdict and he declared the guilty party innocent, or he declared the innocent party guilty, or he declared something tamei which was in fact tahor, or he declared something tahor which was in fact tamei. What he has done is done and must be made restitution from his own property. But if he was an expert approved by the court, he is exempt from making restitution. It would happen that a cow's womb had been removed and Reb Tarfon fed it to the dogs, and the case came before the sages who declared permissible. Todos, the physician, said not a cow, nor so leaves into Alexandria until his womb was cut away, in order that it should not give birth. But Tarfon said, the donkey has departed. The donkey has departed, Tarfon. And Rekiva said to him, Tarfon, you are exempt till you are an expert approved by the court, and any expert approved by the court is exempt from making restitution. Okay.
Basra.
And Vav. If someone's loan document was erased, witnesses attest to it, and he comes before the court and they draw validation. The document of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, was erased of such and such a date, and so-and-so and so-and-so were his witnesses. If one paid part of his debt, Rabbi Yehuda says you should claim to the document. Rabbi Yossi says you should not write a receipt. Said Rabbi Yehuda, the result is the needing safeguard is receipt from the mice. The wealthy one can say to the poor one, require servants, let them bathe in their bathhouse.
Oh, no, you skipped.
I skipped. Go back here. The safeguard is received from the mice. Rabbi Yossi said to him, it is fitting for him so that this one's position not be impaired. If there were 2 brothers, one poor and one wealthy, and the father left him a bathhouse or an olive press, if he had made them for renting, the rent is divided. If he made them for themselves, the wealthy one can say to the poor one, acquire servants and let them bathe in the bathhouse. Acquire olives and come process them in the olive press. 2 people in the same town, both named Yosef and Shimon, cannot produce a document of indebtedness against each other, nor can one produce a document of indebtedness against them. One found among his documents a receipt saying, the note of Yosef ben Shimon is good, but their notes are treated as paid. What should they do? They should record their generation. If they were identical for 3 generations, they should write a description. If they were alike, they should write Kohen. If someone said to his son, one of my notes is paid, but I do not know which all the notes are paid. If 2 notes from one person were found there, the larger one is treated as paid, and the smaller one is not considered paid. One who lends to another through a guarantee may not collect from the guarantor. If he said one condition that I collect from whoever I wish, may collect from the guarantor. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says in either case, if the borrower has property, he may not collect from the guarantor. Similarly, Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Gamliel said, if one was the guarantor of a woman's ketubah and her husband was divorcing her, he must vow not to derive any further benefits from her to prevent him from fighting against his one's property and then remarrying. Okay. Tomorrow we're starting Sanhedrin.
Yeah, but we've got to finish Ches as well.
We have one more to go now.
Yeah, we'll finish it today.
Right. One who lends another money with a document collects from mortgage properties and witnesses. He collects only from available properties, and if he produces handwritten notes he is indebted to him, he collects only available properties. Guarantor appears below the document's signatures. He collects only from available properties. A case came before Reb Mishna, and he said he collects only from available properties. The Nana said to him he collects from mortgage properties, nor from available properties. He said to him, why? He said to him, if someone was choking someone in the street and another encountered him and said, let him alone, he is exempt because he did not lend him due to his trust in him. Rather, which is the guarantor who is liable? If he said, lend him and I will give you, he is liable because he lent him due to his trust in him. Said Reverend Ishmael Gamil, who wishes to become wise should involve himself in the study of monetary laws. That is, there is no branch of Torah greater than them. Because they're like a welling fountain, the one who wishes to involve himself in monetary laws should serve Shimon ben Lanas. And tomorrow, Sanhedrin. Okay. Yeah, almost.
Yoma.
Okay. Yoma. Okay. Zion Hay. The Kohen Gadol serves in 8 vestments and the common Kohen in 4, in a tunic, pants, hat, and a belt. In addition to these, the Kohen Gadol wore a breastplate, an ephod, and a cloak, and a golden plate. Wearing these 8 vestments, they are consulted for the decision of the Urim Tumim, and they are not consulted except for the king, the court, or for someone whom the public needs. On Yom Kippur, eating, drinking, washing one's body, anointing one's body with oil, wearing shoes in the cohabitation are prohibited. The king and the bride may wash their faces, and a new mother may put on shoes. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, but the sages prohibit this. One who eats the volume of a large date, like it and its pit, or drinks the volume of both his full cheeks is liable for a punishment. All foods combine for the volume of a date, and all drinks combine for the volume of his cheekfuls, but the food and drink do not combine. Okay. We have a couple of Friday is Tanakh. It's on Friday. Excuse me?
What did you say?
We have a Tanakh on Friday.
Tanis. So
okay. I don't know. I don't know what time you'll finish or we'll come up. I think we're starting earlier, of course, but
chances are I'm going to go to the late minion anyway, which is the same time.
Okay, so and I got to notice this was interesting. I don't know if you saw this. Maybe you didn't see it, but Friday it says here. This one's been the shul, not from the mayor. The fast starts at 5:18. It says, and the fast ends with Kiddush and the Shabbat meal, but not before 5:05. So I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I put it on my computer over here to look at the note in front of me. I didn't realize that you have to make Kiddush first.
Yeah. Okay. What's in base yard?
Dung vessels and mud vessels through which the roots can go out do not render plants susceptible to tumor. A perforated flower pot does not render plants susceptible to tumor, but one that is not perforated does render plants susceptible to tumor. What is the minimum measure of the hole? Large enough that a small root can go out through it. If one filled it with soil to its edges, like a board that has no rim. There are some items that require heksha, but do not require thought. Others that require thought and heksha. Others that require thought but not heksha, and others neither heksha nor thought. All foods that are normally used for consumption by humans require heksha, but do not require thought. One who cuts off flesh from a person or from a domesticated animal or from a wild animal or from fowl from the carcass of a non-kosher bird and Keilim in the villages and all other field greens, with the exception of shmachim and mushrooms. Rabbi Yehuda says, with the exception of field leek, purslane, and parsley. Rabbi Shimon says, with the exception of cardoons. Rabbi Yehuda says, with the exception of gelusin. These require thought and heksha. The carcass of
That's it.
Okay. All right. Have
Okay.
a great day, and I will see you sometime tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, tomorrow is Thursday anyway.
I was watching. Oh, I get the days wrong. Bye.